If an omni-wise, omni-non-violent, omni-kind, omni-planner, omni-susopla God would have created an ideal simulation or a brand new bio-industry, then he would entirely exclude the carnivores or omnivores from the list of his creations. He would only create and fit the producers, the herbivores, and the microscopic decomposers in the food cycle with wiser orders in reproduction. Like two birds or 10 birds per couple of herbivores, and 100 or less seeds per plant, or 100 and less tubers per plant, and a limited asexual splitting for decomposers is per the necessity to keep the quantitative equilibrium and to avoid any competitions and also to ensure the limits of consumptions. And to determine the thresholds of necessities wouldn't be that hard to calculate for the almighty sculptor engineer of all the creatures. But the fact of the existing food cycle of nature doesn't support the existence of such God, but diverges us into two sections. The first one is that the God is an evil simulator who has created a playground for the carnivores and omnivores since the initial phase. And the next one is that the God is an ideal entirety who intended and built a non terrific earth with calmest orders without volcanoes or storms or deserts or havocs or such dangerous topographies. And then he created herbivores, producers, and microscopic decomposers in absolute order. But later on, he grew mad about creation, and his hunger grew over and over, and the excitement of perfecting his creations picked up. And then he went up creating more and more, and kept on practicing for the perfected one. Thus, he ended up on creating millions of creatures on a random basis. And when he joked off from his madness of creation, he allowed for the mess he flung by the reproductive havoc around him. And how to feed the havoc was his riddle, as he couldn't reverse it, for which he had to destroy his creation. Thus, after long eons of thinking, he unwantedly messed up Earth and introduced oceans, volcanoes, deserts, and deathly topographies. But when he realized these weren't enough, then he created carnivores and omnivores to keep his creation on equilibrium. And in the continuity of creation, he began to like his mess and thus didn't bother to change it in stepwise actions, but let it be more jumbled. And when he got tired of his first phase of creation, he destroyed it. And all the dinosaurs got wiped out. And then later on, he engineered a second phase of creation, but without correcting his blunder, as he was obsessed with a murderous drama. This, in practical framework, answers in the best possible way the existence of God and nature of creation, not otherwise. No any other practical framework or impractical frameworks can answer in the best possible way about the existence of God and the nature of creation as this one. So, as per this, God may be omni so, but he's absolutely an omni error guy turned evil. He by no means worth to be even think of until he takes stepwise action to clear his omni-mess. Now let us fall into our earthly hypocrites. Here the God is omninized with perfected orders of kind aspects and exempted from all the events of terror, evil and wrong happenings by the people who owe the tenders of God prevalent since centuries. Thus assume them as select divine bones of the God sent out regionally to console and guide the people of the selected areas and also for the regional governance. This is per the assumed fact all the gurus, avatars, sons, and prophets are exclusively trained, geographically specialized entities of the Supreme God. They are capsuled with limited understanding of social, philosophical, lingual, psychological angles and are processed rigidly to guide and govern the specified areas. They aren't appointed as flexible entities because they are not meant to encroach the areas. Those are neither meant for them nor are under their jurisdiction nor allotted for governance. Those entities are particularized to limit and explore their manuals according to the geological, or botanical parameters of their governing areas. Thus, they are neither meant nor created to be global, and also nor to be escalated for their global reliability. They are fit where allotted, but not on other distinct socio-geographies. Despite these limitations, they're hazardously marketed everywhere, and all we see is toxic mess since centuries in steel. They are like geographically varying commodities such as chips, whose taste, textures, and ingredients, and even colors differ according to the topographies and socio-psychological variations of the people where the chips are sold, and all made by a sole parent company. Here I go with human centric hold once again. If God observes and dictates the good or evil graphs, prayer, non prayer graphs, believers, non believers graph, daily food, daily deeds, daily talks, evil and non evil events, the souls, the fates, and other blahs centered in the human pole, then why he lets the wicked power up with ease to destroy and non wicked ones to be sunken under the pounding fist of the wicked one and to be under the powerful grip of the wicked one. Though see, this seems childish questions because we know that whatever evil or destructive happens, let that be the rise of murderers or evil leaders, this all happen by the lift or support of the devils or evil deities. As we know it through our instincts that the all good God can't create such havoc, and only his alter ego can create such things. And we know it's necessary truth for extended cases also. And while tens of years are spent by evil deities on those things, God executes no plans to cease them from happening. God, if so, is a procrastinating entity who is into the petty and very low key chores or tantrums of his flock's social life, a carelessly dumb diversion of a dictator, is he skipping or ignoring or letting it happen because of some clauses with the evil deity or half self that binds him into the exclusivity of curing, rather preventing the evil deeds or evil happenings? If so, the god is better good to be deactivated from social account of Homo sapiens. God who sees but procrastinates is the truth of Mr. Tolstoy's God too, who sees the truth but waits. I dismiss and conclusively flick off the philosophical mess of those writers and philosophers like Tolstoy or Dostoevsky and others who dramatically try to fit their gods by wounding a psychologically thorny sociopathic wall in their writings to procrastinate the readers into astray God away from the root of reality. Now I crack into the divine guides. Here I consider the bulks of wise men so divinely tossed, whose divinities come with omniscient exemptions upon the god who in turn has sent them as guides for different topographical regions. Keep this at the center. So, Abrahamic prophets wait for the God's wave of knowledge to hit their brains while wandering aimlessly illiterate and poor, giving a damn to the learning stops and keep on being a sheep-eyed. Whereas Indian god or avatars properly and the god status philosophers or gurus, irrespective of their financial states, either rich or poor, move to study under guidance. They learn, think, and analyze with specific and static aims and are eagle eyed. This sharp distinction of priority reveals the conclusions itself about how they deal with acceptance of the knowledge. The easy gained versus hard gained. Here I keep an exception that the Abrahamic prophets could have been practicing learning and philosophizing in secret according to their socio-geographical expertise, and when they popped out from a long absence, then they were revered as, oh, they didn't know anything, but they know anything everything. So that might be a divine interference on them. They might have used the tactical approach. Who knows? So keep it aside. Now, the Abrahamic scriptures are like closed economy, scrutinized and cam-eyed with dictatorial pinpointedness. The words are people in permanent orders with tight heart chains, where the front and back covers are gates of dictator's state, whereas the Indic scriptures are like open economy, non-scrutinized and loose. It's like tax-free states where you keep whatever you gain. The words here are people in temporary orders with loose and soft barriers, whereas the front and back covers are soft movable gates of a non-dictatorial state. It's a North Korea versus Dubai stuff, precisely. The mindset of Abrahamics focus on static self, on God's mercy. However greatest portion of kindness without a dot of evil you be, you will certainly go to hell if you reject their invitation to move into their closed states. And however worst you be, you will go to heaven if you enter the closed states. Here, the heaven and the hell are under God's jurisdiction and authority, not under the individual karma. Thus I apologize, Mr. Sandukrit, the rival god of I, a poor doctor with an Islamic award, and who have cured countless Muslims and Christians inclusively, but I'm not sure of Jews. For his hell spot is destined, and following him I pity the monks and Mr. Aloka, the peace carrier who walked for peace for nothing but to be driven into the hell. Such a pity. But against it all, the index focus on motive self for godly or self-reward. If you are kind enough to feel pain of a living organism and have apologies to your unintended destructions of others' lives, while rejecting the invitation to move into the open states, even then you will go to heaven for sure. Here heaven and hell are not under God's jurisdiction, it's under individual karma of understanding and acceptance. I am happy for anyone either from closed or open state who feels such emotions, but I'm sorry for myself because my hypocrisy of feeling pain and apologies move only in the planes of my stories and poems and in this sort of speeches, but not in reality. I'm the one who ran to catch a bird stuck in a wooden bar in a veranda of my house, eager to roast it after writing a prize-winning heartbreaking poem on pain of a parrot. But I'm sure that such emotion is only prevalent in either strict Jains or nature's real philosophers. those who collectively feel like Jains and believe that every movable organisms are interlocked conscious nodes of God and every immovable life should be treated with minimum dismemberment, unlike the calf hate loving nature's priest, Mr. Wordsworth, who is ironically stamped to be so, but he may be termed as abiotic nature's priest because he fits in the biotic system, not in a biotic system of benevolence or priestlyhood, whatever you call it. So, well, for all these except strict Jains and alike Jains who either are God believers or cyclic consciousness believers, what and however they do or feel or believe, the hell spot or bad rise in consciousness is destined for sure. But for the atheist, it's uncertain. After their death, if cyclic consciousness emerges as the truth with the fact that they were in non strict Jain League, then their rise in a dull and hard spot of consciousness is predestined, and opposite to it in a comfortable spot if they were in the strict Jain League. And I doubt that any atheist would be in non strict, sorry, in the strict Jain League. It's almost impossible probability. Well, for the exemption of God and cyclic consciousness both emerge as invalid, untruthful stops, then it's not a case to think of, but to keep on rolling on either as atoms in the air or minerals in the soil. And if you say that I'm a well-read man while carving down yourself into the human-generated social codes of your scriptures, keeping them as basis, still ready to argue or fight for the respect of aesthetically neutral Swiss gods who neither wage a war by themselves, but rely on your potential to gain their respect and orders, and also to sustain and also to prevent themselves from being extinct, then you are either half-baked or rotting or dried or littered one, an institutionalized bread of knowledge. So dissecting divinity and proving it under reasonable clauses of scriptures is the ultimate signature state of a holoman who resonates with its own breath and claims an external interference for that resonance. It's the irony. The religious scriptures are assumed relative aspects of socio-psychology carved by geographies, thus they are not evidences at all by any conditionings. The regulations and prohibitions must be taken as contextual factor needed to be changed as per the change in the states and things and time. Because those things cancel the initial arc of what to follow and what not to follow. So the scriptures can be philosophical conjectures good for social development and assumedly rational, but they must be limited to your social spectrum and not otherwise as evidences or proofs. Thus, religions and gods entirely are observational complexities of humans. Now here I go with human-centric concept. As anybody can argue about charities, good deeds, and happenings, and may just question if God is that sort of evil or a good turned evil fellow, then why, as a human, as a conscious human being, we like to uh, give charities or we are indulged in good deeds, and why did God teach us so? The first thing is God never taught us anything. And the second thing that about charities and good deeds is a social act of sustaining, not just sustaining, of about mutual sustaining. It's about mutual sustaining in a society. The more you have, the more you give. The less you have, the less you give. And it's also not about God fearing aspect, because without God and without the existence of God, these things like charities and good deeds should go on in their own way and their own arc and in their own curve, making a well ascending graph. So for these things, gods are not needed. Gods actually, the religions or philosophies of religions actually inserted these things into their uh, scriptures to make it more relevant to the society. But it's just a propaganda. Sorry, it's just a that's like deceptive propagandas, social factors, man. So if it exists, if the god exists, it is deceptively evil. If it doesn't, then we are fine with the progressive cause and effect cycle or geometric patterns of actions that's partially constructive and majorly destructive. And we're living, existing in this sort of uh, imbalanced nature, and it's going on well. That's it. It's an essay by Resoun B. Acharya, The Crisis of Heavens. Thank you.